Arizona basketball gets its Big 12 schedule, and there's a lot of really good teams on there.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Check it out, FanDuel. All kinds of really, really good stuff at FanDuel. There we go. There's that. So many intros. Okay, now, Arizona basketball has its schedule. And not only does Arizona basketball have its schedule, it is very, very interesting, everything that it's got. Now, there's a lot of Arizona fans that are very upset that that Arizona is not getting Kansas at McHale. I understand that one, and I do understand that this is a source of frustration because listen, when it comes to Arizona, when it comes to Kansas, this is a program that both have history with each other, even going back to Roy Williams, but we're going to have to wait to get him to McHale the following year. That will happen, so don't worry about that. But let's talk a little bit, though, about where everything is with Arizona's schedule. Now, we're going to talk about the home and away first, and then we will get to some other stuff. First of all, the home and away with Arizona is Arizona, and Arizona's taken on ASU both times. Now, I think with ASU, you got to be able to look and say that Arizona should be able to beat ASU both times because ASU does not really have a home court advantage. That is just kind of is what it is, and they're starting and relying on a bunch of freshmen. Arizona should be significantly better than ASU. Period. Point blank. Okay, now. The next one then, home and away. Here's where it gets very, very fascinating. Baylor. With Baylor, it becomes very interesting because this is going to be a loaded Baylor team. And you look all up and down, they're generally the teams that have given the type of teams that have given Tommy Lloyd a little bit of problems over the years, and that they've been pretty physical. They played really hard, and they've had athletes. With Baylor, they haven't gotten out of the first round the last couple of years, but you do know that they're probably going to be very good. And I think the thing about it too is that you do know that with Baylor, you're going to have a lot of talent, but it's also going to be a good measuring stick. So Arizona is going to obviously have a very good chance with that. I'm excited to see that. But I also think that Arizona needed to have more games like this, not less games, because of the fact that you just haven't had those. In the Pac-12, you haven't had a lot of big-time games. You haven't had a lot of games where you knew that you were going to be going against some of the best that the country had to offer. And with Baylor, that's going to be one of the cases. Baylor is incredibly talented, and that's going to be a fun game to watch. So both are fun games to watch. You're going to Waco, then obviously you're going to be playing them in McHale as well. So there's certainly that. Then after that, it becomes a little bit interesting. You got BYU now. BYU has a new coach that is going to bring in a lot of players. They were going to get Josan Sainon, and obviously that didn't go through, but they were going to be able to get him. You've gotten a couple other very, very high profile players, and who knows? I mean, Mark Pope, I thought, did a very good job at BYU, but they didn't have, the next level talent. I think under this new coach, you might have some next level talent that could come into play. And if that's the case, then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more interesting when Arizona goes to Provo. But BYU, very, very tough. And not only is BYU very, very tough, they're a team that I think you look at them and you're kind of like, all right, well, you're going to have a lot of young talent, and it's going to be a difficult place to go into. Not a team that you can take lightly. To give you an idea, if you were going, let's just put it like this: if you were going into the Big 12 and you're like, all right, well, there's going to be some gimme games, you're going to be mistaken. Use BYU for example. BYU BYU shows that if you were in the Big 12, they would probably, or the Pac-12, they probably would have been the second or third best team. That's just kind of where it is. Just kind of the way it is. So BYU, that's going to be a very fun one, home and away. Now Iowa State, that's the one that really, really catches my eye. Iowa State. Now listen, they've got a coach in TJ Elselberger that's done a very, very good job, and he's turned them kind of into a monster. They were really, really good last year, and when they're at Hilton Coliseum, that is one of the most difficult places in all of college basketball to play. It's got a great reputation for a reason, and I think that's going to continue to be the case. I'm excited for Arizona to be able to go into. I'm excited for Arizona to go into Hilton and be able to see what they can do, because that's going to be a raucous environment, and Iowa State's going to be bringing in a top 25 team. Or a top 25 team, more like a top 10 team. So that'll be very interesting to watch as well. But we'll keep up to date on that. Plus, you're going to get them in McHale, obviously, as well. And then you got Texas Tech. This also just goes to show you the depth of the Big 12. Keep in mind, Texas Tech, this is a program that is 5 or 6 years removed from playing in the national championship game, and they're kind of an afterthought when you think of the Big 12 at this point. So Texas Tech, another one that just kind of proves the point. Arizona's going to be getting all of those schools in home and aways. I like it. Like I said, the one that I really, really am looking forward to is Iowa State. I think that Iowa State's going to be a very fun one, and we'll see how that one plays out. But overall, very enthused to see what they can do. And like I said, I think these schools are going to enjoy McHale. McHale's obviously a different environment entirely than, and it fits very much into the Big 12 and where they want to, where you want them to be. And then, and again, I get that people, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, I get that people are bummed about Kansas and not coming to McHale. That's going to happen. Like I said, I am just more excited that Arizona is actually going to be playing good teams. And when I look at the schedule, I don't see a ton of Oregon States and Washington States and Stanfords and Cals. I see teams that are nationally relevant at the highest level, and that is kind of where we're at with that. So I'm excited to see where Arizona can be with that. Now, let's get into some of this home and away, some of the homes now and away, because listen, there are some things here that aren't that bad. You've got some pretty good teams coming to the University of Arizona, and we're going to talk about that. But first, let's talk about FanDuel, my friends. FanDuel. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Check it out. All kinds of good stuff. The great thing about FanDuel, it's very simple. With FanDuel, you know that your money is good, and you know that honestly, you can bet before a game, you can bet during a game, or you can bet a future. But you also know that your money is good. In this day and age, a big thing is knowing that your money is good. And with FanDuel, you know that your money is good. And, like I said, we're going into a league where you're probably going to want to bet a lot. So again, check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you will thank me later, as always. All kinds of good stuff at FanDuel.com. Okay, now let's look at some of the home games then in just a second. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Now, let's look at some of the home games. So, here's who you got. You got UCF. Now, with UCF, obviously, they're not great. Johnny Dawkins is their coach. They're not great, certainly. But you do know that this is a team that knocked off Kansas, and I do believe they knocked off Baylor last year. So they got that kind of firepower. They can obviously beat a number of teams, and they've shown that they can do that. It takes talent to be able to do that, and they've got exactly that. Then when it comes to But Arizona, like I said, with the Arizona is going to be playing them at home. If this was a game where you were traveling to Central Florida, I'd be a little bit more concerned about it because, well, honestly, you don't want that's just a bear of a trip. Arizona football is going to have to deal with that. I don't think that you're too excited about that, but Arizona should be able to win that one. Then you got Colorado. Colorado is going to be terrible. Colorado is going to be, in my opinion, the worst team in the Big 12 next year. And honestly, I think Tad Boyle is just an okay coach. He's nothing great. He's just kind of an okay coach. And you just had three players that were drafted in the NBA draft, and a big part of it was you're wondering how in the world was Colorado not better? You know, there were 10 seed or 26-10. How was Colorado not better? And like I said, I think it's just kind of a mediocre program, and Arizona gets them at home. I expect Arizona to be able to smash Colorado. Now, next one, too, where it gets very interesting is Houston. Houston is really, really, really tough. And Houston is, not only is Houston tough, you know, they've just kind of set that template there under Kelvin Sampson that, you know, going into that environment it's difficult, and he's just got a group of players that, quite frankly, are just dogs. I mean, they kind of follow that lead of Kelvin Sampson, and he's done an amazing job there at Houston, and I think you're going to continue to see him do an amazing job. What is fascinating about him, or this team, though, is that you're losing Jamal Shead. And when you lost Jamal Shead, I think the thing that you kind of started to worry about is, where exactly will the scoring come from? Yes, you returned 7 out of 8 players, and that is awesome, obviously. But you saw in that NCAA tournament when they lost, when Shed went out, they didn't really have anybody outside LJ Cryer that could really score the basketball. And that's something that I think has got to be a little bit problematic for you if you're a Houston fan, because honestly, that was, he was the bell cow. He was the guy that got everybody in line. And when he went out, it wasn't the greatest thing. Now you got Milos Uzan coming in at the point guard. That was that's just, to me, he's just okay. Obviously watched him in high school. Arizona was looking at him for a while. He doesn't do a ton for me. Like I said, to me, he's just kind of okay. But, and it's not like there's anything wrong with that. It just kind of is what it is. So scoring to me is a little bit of a concern if I'm a Houston fan. That's why I've got them down a little bit in my rankings, just because of the scoring. But, you know, with any of these 1 through 5, they could all win the conference. And I don't think that anybody would be shocked by it in the least. But like I said, I do worry a little bit about their scoring. Then we get to the home. We get to the last 2 of the homes. Listen, TCU under Jamie Dixon. I've always liked Jamie Dixon. I think Jamie Dixon's a really good coach. I think he does a really good job at TCU, and obviously he's done a nice little job there. But Arizona, especially getting them at home, Arizona should have more firepower. Arizona, in my opinion, should be able to do that. And honestly, I do think that this is a team that, you know, I think matches up fairly well with TCU. And then Utah, I don't expect Utah to be very good. I think Utah is going to kind of stink, to be honest with you. I don't see a lot, you know, like I said, I think their coach did a very nice job, but I just don't think that there's a lot of talent there. I don't worry too much about them, especially because Arizona gets them at home. So we'll obviously, you know, that one will obviously be one to keep in mind. But so there's your home and aways and your homes. Now let's get to the aways. You got Cincinnati. With Cincinnati, it's interesting. Cincinnati has traditionally always been solid. You know, with Bobby Huggins, he obviously did a very nice job there. Then Mick Cronin didn't really have any NCAA tournament success, but still did a solid job. Kind of fallen off a little bit, but it's still programmed with, I think, a lot of pride and a reputation. You know that when you're going to play Cincinnati, it's going to be a tough game. It's not going to be an easy game, and you know that they're going to bring it. Cincinnati is obviously a good program. They will be very interesting to watch in all of this. But I think that Arizona, like I said, you're traveling to Cincinnati, so that makes it difficult because, again, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a physical game, and I think with Arizona, you know that I think with Arizona, you know that this will, that those are the kind of games, though, that you signed up for. Then you've got Kansas at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. I expect Kansas to be the best team in the country this coming season. I think that they are clearly the best team in the country. I like their lineup the most. I think that not only with their lineup, I think you've also got a squad that where is a you know that basically this is a team that Kevin McCuller's gone, obviously, but you got Hunter Dickinson, you got KJ Adams, you've got Zeke Mayo, you've got AJ Storr, you've got DeJuan Harris, and like I said, you've got a lot of different really, really good players there. But and then honestly, after that, you got a 5-star big man coming off the bench. I think that this team is absolutely loaded. Not only do I think that this team is absolutely loaded, I just think that this is going to be a team that's going to be very, very good. And I think it's the best team in the country. But I also think that Arizona can match up okay with them. You look at DeJuan Harris, you look at Jaden Bradley. I'll take Jaden Bradley on that, although I do like DeJuan Harris a great deal. I think DeJuan Harris is I think he's a good player, but I think Jaden Bradley's got some scoring potential as well that DeJuan Harris doesn't necessarily possess. Then you look at the two, Caleb Love, and if you want to go with whoever you want to go with there, whether it's Zeke Mayo, I'll take Caleb Love. Obviously, as much as I love KJ Adams, KJ Lewis, I'm going to go with AJ Storr over him. And then you got Trey Townsend, you've got KJ Adams. All right. But then Hunter Dickinson and Mount Crevis. Dickinson's obviously better, but I don't know that Dickinson necessarily scares me though either. So either way, I do think Kansas is the best team in the conference that will and the country. But that'll be fun to see how Arizona matches up with them. Plus, going into Fog Allen, I think is something that is going to, like I said, it's going to test Arizona quite a bit, and that will be something I think it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to watch. Just kind of see how that one plays out. And I do believe that there's going to be I do believe that Arizona should be able to give it a real go at it. Keep in mind, I think Fog Allen is probably about as intense a place to go into when you think about their current status in college basketball, their fan base, where everything's at. You do know that Fog Allen could be a difficult place to play, and I think that's going to be a really, really good measuring stick for Arizona. Then you got Kansas State under Jerome Tang. He's done a great job. You're going into Manhattan. That's a difficult place to play, obviously. And when you go into Manhattan, I think the thing that you got to keep in mind too is that city's a little bit like Tucson, and that it's not nearly as big, obviously, but they are all about basketball. That is what they care about, period, point blank, and they care about football as well. It's going to be a tough environment, and they've also shown that they can have NCAA tournament success. So, it's something that Arizona is going to have to be ready for, and I think that they will be, but it's going to be something that's going to really tough them up. And then you got Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State pretty much stinks. I don't know why that job hasn't been, able to be a little bit better. I mean, you look at what Mike Gundy's been able to do, and he's done a very nice job. That it just hasn't been, I think, nearly up to snuff as to where it should be. But, obviously you're going there, so that won't be easy. Then you got West Virginia after that. I expect West Virginia to be awful. I was only looking forward to this, hoping that Kirk Kriisa would still be there. Kirk Kriisa is obviously not there. But so again, I think the big takeaway, there's two big takeaways from this schedule. You can see that this is a absolutely loaded conference, as you know. But not only is it a loaded conference, you also do know that this is a conference where you're like, all right, this is going to be really, really difficult. And I think that, but it's very good though. Either way, I'm excited. I know a lot of people are really bummed about not being able to play Kansas. I get all that. I totally get that one. But at the same time, we can get, I think at the same time, it'll be back. Now, there's something too where you're like, all right, there's one thing now that I think everybody's kind of asking about. We're going to talk about that next. But first, ebaymotors.com, my friends. eBay Motors. Check it out. eBay Motors. All right, here's the deal. In this day and age, cut out the middleman. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Tired of getting screwed over by people that don't have your best interests at heart? eBay Motors says, we are here to help you. And not only are we here to help you, we want to be able to, you get the parts and then you take it to somebody that you trust. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Again, with eBay Motors, this is another one of the epitome of you will thank me later on. Check it out, eBay Motors. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, just kind of a spitballing where Arizona is in the grand scheme of all of this. I do think that Arizona is going to be one of those top 5 teams. And what's wild about the Big 12 is that when you look at the top 5 teams, they're also going to probably be 5 of the top 10 teams in the country. I think Kansas is definitely the best team in the conference, but I look at that and I think it's kind of I think you can go pretty much any direction with those other 4. I'm actually probably going to go Arizona at 2 or 3. Need a little bit of time still to digest this, but Houston's obviously awesome. They could certainly end up being number 2, but I do think that losing Jamal Shead is a massive, massive deal because you saw the scoring problems they had when he wasn't on the court against Duke. But again, you got a point guard in there. You didn't have a point guard in there before. Baylor is super, super talented. If you were to tell me that Baylor is going to be better than Arizona, I could certainly see that as well. Iowa State. The thing with Iowa State that's going to be fascinating to see is how they play away from home. And if they play well away from home, then I think that they're going to be a real, they're obviously a real contender either way. But I think people need to look at this and say Arizona is playing good teams again. That is awesome. That is what we should want because for the longest time, let's be honest here, Arizona, you looked at that schedule, you're like, man, what a collection of poo. That is not the case anymore. You know that this is going to be a gauntlet. This is going to be a very tough setting for a lot of different players, but I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun to be able to watch these guys and know that, all right, this isn't going to be easy and it's going to be a tough, tough scenario. So we're going to have a lot more about this. I'm just ecstatic that the schedule is out and that we get to start talking about it as well. A big thing that we can start talking about too, like I said, is Arizona basketball in the best conference in the country. And it's going to take its lumps. You're going to take some lumps. You're going to take some losses. But I think that you need to also know that with all of that, though, it's still okay because you know that Arizona is going to be just fine. Arizona also probably needed some wake-up calls that it wasn't able to get in the Pac-12. There were too many games last year where Arizona just kind of showed up and they either got the win or they got the loss, but it didn't really look like they were totally engaged. In the Big 12, if you don't come engaged, you are going to lose games and you are going to lose games bad. That, I think, is something that Arizona fans definitely need to keep an eye on. But either way, it is here. We've got the Big 12 football schedule. We got the Big 12 basketball schedule. Obviously, we don't know when Arizona is going to play all of those games, but it is going to be very, very enticing. So we're going to continue to talk about this a lot. Next show, we're going to talk about some instant impact recruits as well. Arizona's got a lot of stuff going on. But like I said, Big 12 is here, and this is awesome. Like I said, I can't stop thinking about just all these fun different matchups and everything. But as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you. Have a great, great rest of your day.